In September 1946, at the age of 20, Ed Meagher began teaching at Loyola. At first he taught geography and history, then English and Latin, until he finally found his forte in a subject area from which thousands of future Loyolans would benefit: mathematics. In the teaching of this subject, Ed was a master. He could be found tutoring students in his classroom daily before classes began, and even on Saturdays. In 1947, when Ed heard that the college hockey program was in danger of folding, he volunteered to act as player-coach in order to keep the program alive. That season, the talented team went on to play an exhibition schedule which included an upset victory over the Montreal Junior Canadiens. College hockey at Loyola survived in great part due to Ed's leadership. In 1950, when St. Paul's College in Winnipeg offered him a chance to coach and specialize as the school's director of athletics, he left Loyola. As the coach of the St. Paul football team, he met a pretty young cheerleader named Margaret Skelly. 4 years later, they were married and went on to have 4 sons, Kevin, Brian, Gary, and Richard, and a daughter, Kathy. In 1951, realizing that his heart was really back at Loyola, Ed returned as the high school's first athletic director, also taking on the duties of coaching the senior football and hockey teams. During that same decade, Ed was appointed director of athletics of Loyola College. This was the start of a 10-year dual role as athletic director for both high school and college. With a shortage of artificial ice rinks in Montreal during the 1950s, there were only 4, including the Forum. One of Ed's first accomplishments as director of athletics was the installation of artificial ice in the Loyola Stadium in January of 1954. The hockey program received the boost it needed, and Mother Nature would no longer control the length of the season at Loyola. Seeing the benefits of athletics in a high school student's life, Ed was determined to offer athletes who were not good enough to make the extramural teams a chance to play sports. In 1950, he formed a house league football program. One of the 150 boys who signed up was Joe Poirier, a future great defensive back for the CFL Ottawa Rough Riders. Joe attributed his football career to Ed's initiative in providing as many Loyola students as possible with the opportunity to play football no matter at what level. It didn't take long for the House League program to have an impact on the school's extramural teams, as many former House Leaguers went on to play for the school's senior team. Their contribution was invaluable, as Loyola went on to capture 6 city championships in senior football in the 1950s alone. Ed Meagher was determined to find more to do for the older students. The 15 and 16-year-olds, who he felt were at the critical age where dropping out of sports could be dangerous. In 1957, House League basketball and hockey programs were started, further adding to the number of students becoming involved in their school beyond the classroom. The beginning of the 1960s marked the start of Quebec's Quiet Revolution, a period of rapid change in Quebec society and more particularly in Quebec education. Loyola College and Loyola High School became 2 separate entities in 1960, and the enrollment in the college exceeded that of the high school. For the first time, girls began attending Loyola, but only in the college. As a result of this separation, Ed Meagher's 10-year stint as athletic director for both institutions came to an end. As he loved to teach students of high school age, he chose to continue as athletic director of the high school. Throughout the 1960s, Loyola students continued to benefit from Ed's talents, both in the classroom and on the playing fields and rinks. In 1963, after 17 years of teaching and coaching, he decided that his future lay in administration and teaching. He was appointed the school's first lay vice principal, a post he held for the next 14 years, and during this time his involvement in student activities diversified. He served as moderator for the Student Council and the school's Maroon and White Honor Society. Time restraints forced Ed to give up his senior football team. However, he did manage to continue coaching senior hockey, winning 5 more city championships and eventually his first ever provincial hockey championship in 1976. In June of 1968, Loyola College honored Ed for his years of service and dedication by inducting him into the Loyola Sports Hall of Fame. The man who had starred on high school and college football and hockey teams for 8 years, who had coached Loyola teams to city championships over the span of 4 decades, who had acted as athletic director for both the college and high school for 10 years, who had kept college hockey alive as player-coach in 1947, and who had helped bring artificial ice to the Loyola Stadium in 1954, was honored for a lifetime of achievements. However, no one told Ed that he had done enough, and no one could have imagined that he would give another 23 years of his life to the institution he loved so much. 4 years later, the high school paid similar homage to Ed Meagher when on June 16, 1972, he was honored for his 25-year contribution to the school's academic and athletic programs. 300 friends and colleagues attended the reception at the Chateau Champlain Hotel. By the mid-1970s, the political climate in Quebec was in turmoil, greatly affecting Ed's feelings for his home province and the education system to which he had devoted most of his life. While his love for Loyola was immeasurable, his love for his family led him to make a difficult decision. The last person one would have imagined leaving Montreal and Loyola moved to Aurora, Ontario with his family in August of 1976. There, Ed joined his older brother Bob, who was already on the faculty of the prestigious St. Andrew's College. For the next 4 years, Ed shared his passion for teaching and coaching hockey with a new group of students, who quickly learned that they were the fortunate benefactors of an unstable political climate in Quebec. Ed guided the St. Andrew's hockey team to league championships in 3 of his 4 years at St. Andrew's. While he both enjoyed and appreciated the opportunity at St. Andrew's, the lure of Loyola was too much for him. The Jesuit imprint on him was just too ingrained, and he had to return to Montreal and to the school that had been a major part of his life for so long. In 1980, Ed returned to new challenges at Loyola when Father Eric McLean, S.J., the school president at the time, invited him to serve as Loyola's first alumni director. The future of government funding for an English Catholic school in the more and more secularized province of Quebec was a major concern. Ed was determined to see future generations of English-speaking Catholics have the same opportunities for a Loyola education as past generations. It was with this end in mind that Ed vigorously pursued one of his major tasks as alumni director, the raising of funds for student bursaries, a necessity for the future of Loyola. Shortly after his return, Ed became one of the original inductees into the Loyola Hall of Merit, in recognition for his immeasurable service to others. The legacy of Ed Meagher lives on in Loyola, especially in the annual winter sports tournament. The tournament began in 1971 when senior hockey coaches Jim Ruddy and Ed Meagher were determined to find a way to showcase the wonderful talents of those who played high school hockey in Montreal. The inaugural tournament, which featured 4 senior hockey teams, was not very successful. Due to a massive snowstorm that weekend, one of the teams could not make it, and the 4-team tournament turned out to be even smaller. Although the tournament lost money, Father Ken Casey, S.J., the school principal at the time, was determined not to let a great idea die and kept the flame alive with his foresight and financial generosity. Over the years, the tournament has grown into one of the highlights of the Montreal winter sports scene. In 1974, senior basketball, today called juvenile basketball, was added to the tournament, with Loyola capturing the inaugural crown. In 1981, bantam hockey joined the tournament, followed by midget basketball a year later. The tournament remained a 4-division hockey-basketball tournament for the next 13 years, until the sport of wrestling was added in 1995. In 1998, bantam basketball was added, followed by pee-wee hockey in 2003.